Hello everyone, it's Moneybags here, and for one thing, I just wanted to apologize for the little absence. Had a lot of chaos go on in my personal life in addition to an injury that put me out for about a week. It's just been a crazy time in my life, but that actually got me to thinking about something, and I'm going to talk about it today. The importance of perseverance and willpower is something I've been thinking on pretty heavily over the past few days. Now, there are people in the world, mainly political and philosophical factions, that will claim to offer you the way out of suffering, the cure to all that ails you. And I hate to say it, this is a bitter pill to swallow, but it's simply not true. Suffering is a universality in life, and it comes down to how you react that decides whether you sink or swim. I'm going to go on a bit of a personal anecdote and talk about where I've been the past few years and the general state of my life. Starting from the year 2019 all the way into 2022, I was on a vicious downward spiral. 2019 began with the death of my father at the hands of a car accident that, absolutely shattered my world. What can I say? From 2019 to 2020, I spent most of my time unemployed in my room, barely hygienic, playing video games because I just couldn't bring myself to pull myself out of bed in the morning. 2020 was much the same, although I was certainly on the road to recovery, and then COVID hit. I was locked in my room for about, maybe a year or two, and being an extrovert, that severely kneecapped how I was feeling. Then in 2021, my mother moved to another state, and I decided that I wanted to stay where I was. It was a poor decision, but it is one that I don't regret. 2021 was a bit of a adjustment year for me. I was living on my own, relatively speaking anyway, sleeping on my friend's couch, which I would proceed to do for about a year and a half, and working a relatively dead-end job while I was trying to make sure that I stayed afloat. Ending 2021, though, I had gotten a new car that immediately I got into a wreck with. A pretty bad wreck that actually left me in a pretty severe amount of pain for quite a while. That being said, I still tried to carry on, but eventually it all got too much. It hurt me to walk, I didn't have a car, and trying to get to and from work became too much of a hassle until I eventually just decided to stop going into work altogether. I was eating a meal a day, usually something that was nutritionally bankrupt because it was the cheapest thing I could afford, and using drugs to stave off both the physical and existential pain that I was dealing with. This all came to a head when in late 2022, I received a lawsuit from the person who I was involved in the accident with. And eventually, I just buckled. I said, no more, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. And I moved back up to where my mom is, to where I am now, in fact. But something happened there that I wasn't necessarily expecting. You see, when you go all the way to the bottom, the way that I did, the only place that you can really go is up. But whether or not you go up is a matter of choice. I began to use my uncle's gym, built in a shed just outside his house, and trying to give myself something to do. Eventually, I got stronger and stronger, and I even found a steady job while I was up here. One that I no longer work at, but I'm still employed. I began to expand my horizons and even began doing the music that I had aspired to do all this time, finally finding someone that I could jam with, which is something I couldn't find in my previous place. That is to say, I chose to move forward. Everything that I chose to do, every decision, was the result of my force of will. Initially, my plan was to just grind for as much money as possible so that I could immediately move back to where I was, because I didn't want to be where I'm at now. That was 3 years ago. Now, I have friends, a band, a girlfriend, And it all came from the will to power to make the most out of the bad situation I was in. And that's the true way to solve your suffering, is to power through it. Suffering is going to happen. It is inevitable, unfortunately. And the only way to get through the suffering and come out on the other side in one piece is truly just to deal with it, I suppose. Perseverance is a skill, after all. It's not a simple trait. It can actually be learned and honed, and that's something I learned when I moved up here at the age of 23. When you have a goal, when you have something in mind that you want to push toward, it becomes much easier to lock in and focus and make that dream a reality. However, not everything goes according to plan. I intended to stay until January, and I've been here for 3 years. I've built something more than what I had down there, and it is quite an interesting thing to see. But I'm still not satisfied with where I am, and there are stressors in the everyday that will push down on you, and indeed it happens to me, that will make you just want to give up. But perseverance is also a choice, and it is a rather difficult one, I will say. The choice to give up is the easy route, but it's not the fulfilling route. If I had chosen to give up, if I had chosen to just lie there in defeat, where would I be now? Certainly, I wouldn't have the band I now play in, the girlfriend that I love, and the respect that I've gained from my family as I've continued to persevere and try to make the most of life. Ultimately, your life is in your hands. There will be circumstances that come up that you cannot control, and how you react to them is the only thing that you can control. The reason that I bring this up is that there seems to be a lack of fostering and encouraging perseverance. Instead, grifters will say, "Buy my course, and I will teach you how to end suffering." But ultimately, I'm brought to the parable, the Chinese parable, I believe, of the 3 great philosophers of Eastern philosophy, and their responses to the barrel of brine. That is to say, Confucius goes and dips his finger in the barrel of brine, licks his finger, and grimaces because the brine is bitter and should be made better. Buddha dips his finger again in the brine, licks it, and has no reaction because the brine is bitter and that's just how it is. Lao Tzu has quite a different view. He dips his finger in the brine, licks his finger, and smiles because the brine is bitter, as it's meant to be. The concept of suffering as a character builder has been lost in modern society as we increasingly chase for comfort and fulfillment in a rather instant gratification-oriented way. The idea of waiting, being patient, persevering, and pushing through the hardships has sort of been lost. But that doesn't stop hardship. Hardship is not going to end. It's your responsibility then to be beaten by it maybe, but never broken by it. To forge a strength of will, a will to power, a will to conquer, to create the life that you want to make, because it is ultimately your choice. This was a lesson I had to learn the hard way, and while I'm still not entirely eloquent at putting it forward, mostly because I'm not super comfortable behind a mic yet, but we'll get there. I hope that I can maybe show people that the hard way is not the only way. Learn from me. Learn from this former drugged out of shape loser who was sleeping on his friend's couch and eating god-awful food every day, once a day. If I could get to where I'm at now, you can do it too. Go forth and persevere. Anyway, that's it for you. I know it wasn't as eloquent as it could be, but I was unscripted and I did this video off the cuff. So hopefully it comes out good and any mistakes can be ignored. But until then, this Saturday we have another episode of Children with Back Pain. and Moneybags out.